All right, welcome back, everyone, on our cycle of phases and aspects. This is going to be labeling a part 1B, so the second part. So we're just going to jump right in here. I use this almost like a cheat sheet, so to speak. In other words, if you're looking at semi-squares, and sesquisquadrate means square and a half. So if you're looking at those marks of semi-squares, which is 45 degrees and 315, and the sesquisquadrates, which are 135, 225, this is the listing. If you find one planet at 0 degrees and another planet at 15, you can start to look visually and see if there is that 45-degree aspect that is between them, or a aspect a little bit larger than that. I have someone waiting in the lobby, so hold on. I think I know how to do this again. I have to stop sharing my screen,
And
correct?
right, and Kim, I don't think you are recording. Yes.
Mhm.
Could you say who that was?
It's a Marge Comaway.
Oh, Marge got disconnected. Yes, please let her in. Thank you.
Okay, and so remind me again, I have to get out of PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
So stop sharing, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and Marge, we admit Marge.
Yes, she's in now.
Okay, all
Her
right.
mic is on. Yeah. I'm gonna mute myself now, and you can reshare the PowerPoint.
Sure, sure. Okay, here we go. So anyway, this is a little cheat sheet that I will use, and you could you actually do out all the numbers if you wanted to, and it just helps you a little bit with the math. And again, you look at it visually and you can find those 45-degree aspects a little easier. So now we're going to move into the crescent phase, and as you can see on your screen here, this is going to be from 45 to 90 degrees. And now we have yin energy, energy moving back to the center. And the key phrase for crescent phase is the struggle. And what happens is, as that energy goes inward, that evolutionary cycle has to be internalized and established. And so we've had all these experiences from 0 to 45 degrees. Now we've kind of got to stabilize them. We've got to continue that gestation process, but we want to start to give those two planets a form and a structure with each other. And you know that phrase, uh, um, energy flows where attention goes. You know, our outer world is only as good as our inner world. Well, that crescent phase is that first inner world where we're really trying to allow that new energy between two planets to take root, to have a form. It requires us to put an effort into it, to really be able to make it ours and to establish it enough that that pull from the past starts to get less and less and less. The pull from the past exists from 0 to 90 degrees in some manner or form. But as we start to move from that 45 to 90 degree, we're really gelling that energy, so to speak, to such a degree that the past becomes less and less and less of a pull. Now, opposite of crescent phase is disseminating phase. And that key phrase for you, or key word, is society. And so this is where it's, us really trying to, work these two planets into a new energy together And opposite that is society in all its energy and all its power. And so it is actually a push pull almost between consensus in general, because any society or culture, its bottom line is consensus society. And so it's us versus everyone else. So you can see how it can require that effort, because the tendency is to go back into that consensus norm of those two planets rather than really working to gel and form and create our new perspective of those two planets for us. And the first aspect that we then run into in regards to this phase is the semi-square again. But now we're going beyond 45 degrees. Now we're actually in crescent phase, 46, 47, 48, 49 degrees. And so that new evolutionary intention between the two planets, it's intense. And we're struggling to actually manifest it in a new way, unique to us. But that energy of yin, it's that tension of really being able to make that effort. And sometimes it's just too easy to pull back and let society tell us what to do, Venus, Mars, and how to be in a relationship, or Sun, Moon, in where it's proper or not proper to express ourselves emotionally. So this is why in evolutionary astrology, we really don't look at aspects as good or bad, or right or wrong. It's just, where is it on the path of the 0 to 360? And so we need the tension of the harmonics of 8 in order to move us forward, in order to create the discomfort to change, kind of like that cataclysmic evolution, so to speak. Marge, we can hear you. I'm glad you're here. You might want to mute yourself. And we are now going to go into the next chart. And so, Jackie, I know Jackie's been going in and out a little bit, or maybe do we have Jackie? And if so, could she unmute herself? We are now going to look at an aspect that is the crescent phase semi-square, and we're going to look between Uranus and Saturn in regards to this. Do I have Jackie on? Are you unmuted, Jackie?
Yes, Jackie, you are unmuted. Did you want to try to speak?
Yes, I will. I just want Kim to know that the sound is coming through very vibrationally, so it's hard to understand. And so I'll try to keep up with what you're saying.
Yeah, apologies for that. Who knows what it is with the internet, and the world went to Zoom meetings.
Is that what it is?
Yes. Oh boy, there's been, I don't know if it's as bad as it was, but that month of April when so much was shut down in the United States, it was just Zoom was impossible to work with. Typically, what tends to happen for these recordings is we found that typically after the fact, my voice, the speaker's voice tends to be recorded okay. I think it's just a back and forth energy between all of us relating.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And so that's why I will use this red pointer here. And so with Jackie, mom was a war bride, dad was a soldier. Here's another fourth house Pluto in Leo. Cancer soul that had four younger brothers, lower class, some religious background. She's retired, did a lot of administration work, married 47 years. She has a son, daughter, granddaughter. The granddaughter just moved out. Her last few years have also had uh, loss for her mother in 16, her husband 17, and her daughter just a couple years ago in 2018. So, again, I express sympathy from all of us for you on your journey. And she also has survived breast cancer back when she was 50. And so, with the granddaughter moving out, she has become empty nested for the first time in her life. And so, we are looking at Uranus here, retrograde at 2121 Gemini in the first house, and it is 47 degrees to Saturn. So Saturn is that crescent phase semi-square aspect to Uranus. And when we're looking at a planetary pair of Saturn and Uranus, it's the interface between the consciousness Saturn and the individuated unconsciousness Uranus. Saturn wants to toss it below the surface, and Uranus keeps punching it back up and saying, you can't ignore this. You have to deal with this. You have to process through this and establish it in your world, Saturn. And so we have also with Uranus that individualization process. So Saturn Uranus as a planetary pair is Saturn, how am I breaking free from consensus? Uranus, how am I individualizing to be me? And then how do I establish that out there in society? Saturn. And so I thought it was interesting that Jackie put in her environmental conditioning that for the first time she is empty nested. Uranus in the first house is usually a freedom lover. And yet, relative to a fourth house Pluto, here's the cocoon again. Here's the home and family. Here's the wife, the mom, the caretaker, daughter and granddaughter lived with them their entire lives. And so this is the waxing semi-square aspect here, almost like going, well, now that I'm free, what do I do? Now that I'm living by myself, what do I do? And so there's an energy for you with Saturn in this crescent semi-sextile to really learn how to live for yourself, to establish your own authority inwardly, crescent phase semi-square, and then in the world, Saturn and Uranus. And I would invite you, Jackie, to be okay with any discomfort of being alone or empty nested. I'm really fond of saying in EA, your soul doesn't give a damn what your chronological age is. The lesson comes when the lesson comes. And so, we can't limit our lessons to, oh, I should have learned that when I was 20. Nope, doesn't matter. It's unique to each of us when we learn various things. Now, you may be going, hallelujah. I can totally change the house around. So give me a little feedback for you on where you are. Are you looking for a roommate?
Absolutely not. And I actually had bought a condo between both my husband and my daughter passing away. So I'm not even established in that new place. but I'm doing a lot of inner work, and it's
Mhm.
that place of really now it's my time to really learn who I am and to individuate and struggling with the aloneness totally,
Mhm.
that I am
Mhm.
totally alone and never
Mhm.
ever being having this before, which is a bit
Mhm.
shocking, but um, somehow learning how to integrate that,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so that how I can be in the world and come back in a more conscious, inclusive way to my own
Yes.
being.
Yes. Yes. Briefly, we won't ignore the fact that we've got, 6 planets in the sixth house, and some of the insecurity that will bring along. And this can be a work, 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 work. And I have the freedom to rest. I have the freedom to Pluto Leo play. And also, as I've used this example with Saturn in the semi square to Uranus, we have a tendency to just see this Saturn Pluto right off the bat. And we'll speak to, that balsamic conjunction here. And as tidbits for you, anything that's yet unresolved in a balsamic conjunction between two planets, any karma that they have, anything that they have not resolved, it will come into manifestation in this life. And with this Saturn balsamic Pluto, this right here is telling your soul that you must really um, surrender, balsamic conjunction, to your own authority, to you being the one that makes yourself happy emotionally, fourth house Pluto. And the reason I'm choosing this aspect for you with this crescent phase semi square is that Uranus in Gemini, and again, we have Venus retrograde activating all this right now, of course. It's like, well, who am I? What am I going to be when I grow up? What do I want to do with myself? And so
Bingo.
here's the almost the grounding Saturn to Uranus, and so it really is for you to make that effort, crescent phase, to establish a new identity for yourself. Saturn Uranus.
And therein is the struggle, isn't it?
Yes, yes, exactly. Exactly. And it can you take all those planets in the sixth house and go, well, can I just put one foot in front of the other? What do I do in the next hour? What do I do in the next day? What do I do in the next week? And then that will allow this Saturn Uranus to address everything, address that loneliness that you feel with the losses, that addresses you recognizing, the fourth house is called emotional self reliance. It means I rely on myself for all my emotional needs. And Saturn is trying to really establish this. Take responsibility for that maturation of the soul. In doing it moment by moment, Uranus and Gemini, however it arises for you. And I would say with this crescent phase, yin energy there, you know, um, don't shy away from tears. Don't shy away from the emotions, whatever they are. The whole spectrum of emotions, are all valid. Utilize them, work with them, let them come up and go, well, what does this mean for me? And then have that Saturn energy go, and this is how I feel right now, and it's okay. And it's teaching me something about myself, Uranus. Makes
Yes, the
sense?
tears are always expanding after I get move through them. I'm always expanded because of them.
Yes. Yes. I have a ton of Scorpio in my chart, and I remember being a young girl, about 10, 11 years old, and my mother telling me big girls don't cry, I went and had a meltdown and raged at her and said, I will cry whenever I want to because I feel good afterwards.
I
And
wish I would have done it at your age.
and from that point on, Mom was like, all right, you do that. All right.
Nice.
Thank you, Jackie. These are short examples. We'll look at your chart again as we start to look at these volunteer charts the second time, some of them a third time. We'll start to see flows within the charts. So thank you very much, Jackie. I'm going
That's
to,
great. Thank you, Kim.
Yep, I'm going to move us on now. So, okay, let's get my pattern going here. So the next aspect that we run into in this phase is the harmonics of 7. It's called a septile. And the key word for septiles is fatedness or special destiny. And so at the first septile in crescent phase, which as you can see on your screen is 5125, the new evolutionary cycle manifests through some form of a special destiny. It appears as a fatedness with people or circumstances to align our soul with whatever that evolutionary purpose is between those two planets. It's highly personalized because it's crescent phased, okay, yin. And so we will have a tendency then to initiate experiences or actions in order to discover what is that sense of I've got to create, I've got some destiny with these planets. Now, Jeffrey's teaching would say if the planetary pair, I'm looking to see what I have for a planetary pair here. If the planetary pair is kind of non-harmonious, then it might be sporadic, confused actions. If it's harmonious, clear consistency. Harmonious sun moon, regardless of the aspect, we all have our solar lunar essence of ourself. You cannot get away from your creativity and your emotions. All right. Non-harmonious, perhaps moon in Uranus, sensitive little moon and emotions, and Uranus that is just explosive all over the place. Well, we all have a phasal relationship between moon and Uranus. So this is true, but don't quite take it as an absolute, okay? I will have some septile aspects for you. We won't with this particular one. But just know when we have that harmonics of 7, it's a realignment through that fatedness, so to speak, that puts those two planets on their evolutionary path again. In general, a comment for you. EA teachings, what appears to be fatedness in our chart is on average about 10 to 20% of our life. And it appears to be fated because of choices we made in a prior life. It sets something up. Just like with our free choice, free will, we can make choices in the current life that will set up what appears to be fatedness in a future life. From the ultimate perspective, and this is the last archetype, Neptune Pisces 12th, there is no victimization. And how I like to say that, absolute freedom means absolute self-responsibility. I'm not a victim here. Why is this happening? How do I learn how to co-create with the universe differently? So that's why fatedness is in parentheses, but it will happen with these aspects to realign us. However, we need to be realigning with any two planets. And of course, as we move through that, then we get to what is called that harmonics of 6, which is the semi-sextile, half a trine. So here's where we're consciously understanding that new evolutionary cycle between two planets. And we can do that through some contrast and comparison. There's a harmony here of really moving forward. Relative to that polarity disseminating phase, what are others doing? What do I want to do? And sometimes, if we're going too far, too insecure, and we're going over to that disseminating phase, we may need to isolate ourselves from some of all that energy from the external environment, society, to discover for ourselves what is unique, individualistic for us, relative to any of these two planets that we're looking at. And so, crescent phase, action is internalized as we self-contemplate and then decide how we want to focus externally out there. We have an ability to understand those issues from the past, the old way the two planets operated, the tug to go back in that old way. And we also then know this is how I need to move forward for me. So that struggle at the beginning of crescent phase, okay, starts to ease up here. We're in this phase. We got this focus. I'm getting it. And so we get a temporary little harmony almost that we have choice. You know, all the harmony of the trine aspects, well, I call them couch potato aspects. It's still harmonious. I don't think I'm going to make any effort. So it's important to make effort here, but we have that ability to decide, to choose, comparing and contrasting. This is what's best for me. Now, that last point, this is something in Jeffrey Green's teachings that I absolutely love. That's not much well written about. The choices made at a 60-degree mark between any two planets will impact the rest of the cycle between those two planets. So, 60 degree, it's a sextile. It's a nice, these planets get along very good together. Just look at this from a collective level. Almost everybody from, the last century was born with Neptune waxing sextile Pluto, a 500-year cycle. Choices we make collectively on deep spiritual levels, collective soul energy, cultures, as a species, these energies that we're choosing, the ending of the last century, moving into this one, it's going to affect us for the next 400 years as we're moving out of the Piscean age and into the Aquarian age. Broad example. It works for all of us individually as well. Then we move into the harmonics of 5, which brings in the quintile. The key word for quintiles is creativity. The process of creative transformation through the internal individualization of that new evolutionary purpose. We've internalized, we know, we're grasping how these two planets want to express themselves in new ways. We had that focus of 60 degrees, and now we really get some creativity and we can start to see, excuse my burp, this is how these two planets want to come out together. So that meaning of whatever that emerging evolutionary purpose is between these two planets becomes very specific, very individualized. And it's ready to start going out, 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 out. The tug to go out is starting to come through as we move through the rest of the cycle on to 90 degrees in the yang of first quarter. We can still have some pull from the past, but it lessens and lessens and lessens. And so I have an aspect here with the crescent phase quintile. And so this chart is going to be Shelley. And so, Shelley, if you would like to unmute yourself, and we're going to be looking at Mercury and Uranus here in our example. And so I think I'm starting to get this part down. So we've got Uranus here at about 18 degrees Libra, and its angle with Mercury is 71 degrees and 41 minutes, just shy of that 72 quintile. And Mercury's hanging out at 2956 Sag up there in the ninth house. You can see the conditioning factors here: parents, lower class, dairy farmers, hard, the work ethic was imprinted. That was my background. One older brother, not very close. She donated a kidney to him. She's been married since 30. The relationship has been a little rough the last few years. 10-year-old son, 7-year-old daughter, counting degree, loves her teaching job. She experienced some arthritis as a teenager, damage to joints, mainly in remission. If we look at the planetary pair between Mercury and Uranus, Mercury's known as the left brain or conscious mind. Uranus is known as the um, unconscious mind, the individuated unconsciousness. Mercury and Uranus tend to be one of those key planetary pairs. Our individuated unconsciousness, Uranus, it operates so randomly and sporadically that when something comes to the surface with Uranus, Mercury is there to process it, to analyze it, to express it, to understand it. Uranus is the individuated unconsciousness, the past in all its detail, this in every lifetime, hypnotherapy, regression. Everything we try to suppress via the present with Saturn, individuated consciousness. But Uranus also contains the blueprints of the future. And Uranus throws all three up sporadically: the past, the suppressed present, the future. And we have to kind of make sense of all that. Well, one of the ways we make sense of that is through Mercury. And to have Mercury in this quintile relationship with Uranus, while there can be some of what feels like the chaos of the world going on. And if you notice this person, well, first of all, we're dealing with a Virgo soul here with Pluto at early Libra retrograde, the soul just starting relationship lessons and doing it through the adjustments of the Virgo. And so Uranus is in Libra and the seventh house. And so here is that individuated unconsciousness that is so impacted by others. Someone says something, and we've got to process through it. The point that I want to make here with the quintile is there is a little bit of an edge for Mercury at late Sag in its own ninth house, and Jupiter, new phase to that Mercury. This is someone who can really go, and what do I think? And what do I want? And what do I believe? How do I want to communicate? And this is someone who has a little creative edge to kind of get those intuitive hits of the truth. And Mercury then goes, I get it. I have to express it. I have to live it. I have to share it. It can bring in those creative sparks for her when she teaches. It can bring in that creative understanding of what has to shift or change in a relationship that maybe has her speaking up in that relationship, and it's uncomfortable. It can re-trigger trauma. Uranus, Libra, seventh house, relationships. But relative to that crescent phase quintile aspects, she cannot refuse that struggle to express Mercury. I don't know if I have Jackie on here to give ND feedback. If she's not, Julie, maybe you could let me just know.
Oh, I think it's me. It's Shelley.
Oh, Shelley. Oh, I said Jackie. Oh, never mind. I got the chart right, don't I?
You do. You do. It's all good. It's all good. Um, that's a very interesting, outlook where I've never looked at that component before, but I can see where I get those hits of creativity when I'm teaching, and I'm a terrible writer. And a lot of times when I'm reading things about characteristics of myself, I can't seem to access those hits when I'm writing, but when I'm speaking
Mm-hmm.
and teaching,
Mm-hmm.
I get those hits when I'm in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me give you some feedback relative, because we've already spoke about this. We've already looked at the new phase conjunction aspect, okay? Mercury is the left brain. Jupiter is right brain or intuition. To have your Mercury new phase Jupiter, and then to have it in Jupiter's sign and Jupiter's house of rulership, Mercury is literally initiating new instinctive ways of processing information, processing life. It's initiating new ways to speak, and it is initiating new ways to write. And both of those are new phase to Neptune here in early Sag. These three planets right here in Sag. It is possible, relative to a sixth house Pluto, Virgo soul, it is possible that you've had trauma from others, Uranus here, in trying to speak the truth as the patriarchy rose up. And so, were you one of those? Let's just use a broad example. Were you one of those rabble rousers when Martin Luther, posted all his theses on that German church and spoke up to the Roman Catholic Church, and several people who got involved in all of a sudden with the printing press and the publishing of the written word, people could read the Bible for themselves. So did you get involved in the written word in some way? And it didn't go too good. And so here's Mercury new phase to that Jupiter going, and we're going to initiate a new cycle of really speaking our truth, learning how to express our truth in all its various forms. And you get those creative, intuitive hits here with the quintile. Again, things spontaneously coming up into consciousness on very intuitive levels that allow you to creatively express. I'm going to say that perhaps the inability or the fracturing with the writing, karmic, but it may not have been there with the speaking.
Right.
So don't give up.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Apologies for my names. Here again, I'm gonna do the Scorpio T's here. You'll see my chart tomorrow. I get very when I get into my intuitive right brain side, sometimes I'm not paying attention. So if I say the wrong sign, or if I say the wrong planet, or I say somebody's wrong name, anybody feel free to speak up and correct me. Okay, I no problems, no offense at all. And so here we go again. This always reminds me that. Okay, so the last aspect we're going to look at in this phase, crescent phase, is when we're moving into the first quarter square, but it's still on the crescent size. Here again comes that tension and discomfort because we feel the energy start to changing. And in this case, it's going to change from yin to yang. So it's another one of those transitional evolutionary gates. And what happens here is a very high degree and intensity of internalized compression. And it makes us very aware inwardly of what these two planets want to come out and literally express in new ways. So we've been refining this new evolutionary purpose between two planets for 90 degrees almost. And we're heading towards that first quarter square, which Dane Rudier called the crises in action. So we feel that tension. We want to do something. We want to get out there, but it's still yin. And so it can be a highly frustrating aspect when it is on the crescent side of the square, because back, forth, yin, express. And what it's doing is it's creating a combustion so that we will literally leave that past behind. Well, we have an unconscious fear that we're not going to be able to do it, that we're not going to be able to actualize it. And it's new. So we've never done it before. So when you see the crescent square, you have to observe and watch. Is there that temptation to slide back into those old patterns? Again, I talked about that inner push pull where we'll withdraw and step away from disseminating phase society as we try to really gel. This is the birth point. Okay, we're now 9 months pregnant or 8.5 months pregnant, where that energy is building up and it builds up and it builds up until we've got to do something and test these, the new expression of these two planets together. And when any two planets are on the less than 90 degree side of the square, go back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And those planets can remain there. Any of these aspects or phases between planets can be there multiple lifetimes. It's when you think about that concept, it can go, oh my gosh, we're complicated beings. Yes. And at this first quarter square, the crescent side and the first quarter side, planets can remain there for many lifetimes if we're not willing to really make the effort to create new between those two planets. Same thing with the opposition. Same thing with the last quarter, disseminating last quarter squares. And so we're now going to move into that first quarter phase, and I'm watching time. And if we started at 10:33, that means, I'm sorry, I'm looking mountain time here. So a little after 11 will be our next break, just catching myself. So you can see this phase. And so we'll jump right into, as that phase now goes 90 to 135 degrees. Yang, energy moving out. And this is called the crises in action, where we've got to manifest. We've got to establish what is the new purpose between these two planets, and it's got to be out there in the real world. It can't just be here like it was in crescent phase. It's got to get out there. And so we look back to the original impulse, and clue for you, the original impulse, whatever the slower moving planet is, you make that the 0 point. You make that the original impulse. And then that moving faster planet, okay, is trying to help that slower moving planet, 0 point, manifest. I'll show you this with example. And so as we move into that yang, the fear of failure gets even more intense because it is now yang energy. And it is a rite of passage to leave that past behind. And so the tension is so strong. It's why astrology notices the squares. But in EA, we have 4 squares: crescent square, first quarter square, disseminating square, last quarter square. And the energies are different. This is out there, out there, out there. And so there is a tendency with the crescent phase or the first quarter square that we need more diversity again. We need that ability to manifest it, and we might have to manifest it in more than one way to really get a grasp on how this new form between the 2 planets are going to work. And then, of course, the first quarter phase has an opposite, and that opposite phase is last quarter. And whereas first quarter is crises in action, last quarter is crises in belief. One more time. Others know more. They've already done it. We're just starting. And if we give in to the temptation to go backward and not manifest one more time, those 2 planets can take more than one lifetime in this aspect until they are moving forward and manifesting that new cycle between the planets, unique to them, doing it, acting upon it. And so here is the specifics to the aspect. We have to take that new purpose and we have to give it a meaning. We have to manifest it, and it has to be unique to us, not disseminating last quarter others. And so that tension will be there in various degrees as the aspect goes 95, 96, 97. The tension can start to ease off for us because we're getting the hang or the ideas and the manifestations of exactly how we want to do this. It is an evolutionary gate where it feels like everything from the past has to be left behind between those 2 planets, and that's kind of literally true. So, I've already said this, the soul will manifest lifetimes at first quarter square as it needs to. But from the reason for this is because from that evolutionary standpoint, until these new forms are actualized, the soul is not going to move on. And again, this is not the entire chart. It's relative to 2 planets in first quarter phase square aspect. All right. You're starting to recognize, as we look at 0 to 360 as being a complete cycle, who of you are familiar with, a planet in the first few degrees of a sign? That's a new cycle. Whereas a planet in the last few degrees of a sign, they're finishing up the archetypes of that sign. So from 0 to 30 degrees of each sign is a mini cycle. Starting to get the hang of this with the 8 phases. The beginning of that phase is learning that phase as compared to an aspect in the latter parts of that phase. Oh, I'm getting it. All right, this is what I got to do. And then you then move that into, is it yang or is it yin? You start to get some of the rhythms of this. And so now we're going to move into our first public figure. And this is Bill Gates. And I probably don't have to explain to you who he is. We are going to look at Uranus and Sun here. Bill Gates has a known birth time, probably not exactly 10 p.m., regardless of how we may be off a few minutes. if that's the case, he is still going to remain within the second house. Pluto here at late Leo, 28 degrees, you see this real tight balsamic conjunction of Jupiter. I will use this as a chart example between these two planets. Here's the wealth. But we're going to look at Uranus and Sun, and they rule a polarity together. Leo, Aquarius, friends, lovers. Briefly, you can see the environmental conditionings. He was born into upper middle class. Dad was a lawyer. Mom served on boards as something to do. As one older and younger sister, his father raised him to be very, very competitive. When Bill was small, he was a small kid. He got bullied a lot. And so his father pushed him to be very competitive. And he was extremely interested in computers from a very young age. A lot of private schools, and he would end up doing all this computer programming and, middle school, prep school. Went to Harvard, dropped out in 1975 to start Microsoft with Paul Allen. The rest is history. He's currently the second richest person in the world. The biggest lawsuit for him was the antitrust lawsuit with the United States Justice Department in 1998, that he was monopolizing it and trying to, take control of the operating systems of any computer sold. Melinda Gates, he semi-retired in 06 to create their foundation, and he signed the Giving Pledge with Warren Buffett, in which they have committed to give away half of their wealth. I will speak to the wealth part of Bill Gates when we look at the Jupiter balsamic Pluto aspect. But one of the things that Bill Gates has done with his foundation, he's become very, very interested in vaccines. Anybody hear about that in the news recently? There's a little virus running around. And so he's, been quite active and interviewed a lot in the United States lately. And he has verbally expressed the desire that not only does he think we need worldwide vaccinations, Mr. Computer, we could also put vaccination chips in, so you can't lie and say you got vaccinated when you didn't. Talk about free choice in that regard. And so there is a fear from a lot of the alternative health and wellness in the United States, that he really wants to push worldwide vaccination and computerizing chips that will then not just can carry our vaccination records, but can carry all kinds of other records. Interesting thought. So when we look at Uranus-Sun as a planetary pair, we are really looking at an individualized creative expression. We are, Sun, creative self-actualization is our key word for that. Uranus with Aquarius 11th house is fixed air. The lightning bolts that we hear about Uranus in traditional astrology, it can, remember what I said, blueprints to the future. Uranus can bring us the visions of the future. However, what I like to do is say, with Uranus Aquarius 11th house, we get the vision, but it doesn't come with a date time stamp. And so we're like, well, why isn't this manifesting? Well, in relative to visions, we individually and collectively have free choice. And so we can see something and choose to take a Y in the road as cultures and societies. And so sometimes visions want to be self-fulfilling prophecies as well. Well, when we look at this Uranus here in early Leo in that first house, and the aspect, I compare Sun to Uranus, the angle is 92 degrees and 45 minutes. So it's 93 degrees. We're 3 degrees past that first quarter. And so maybe there was a lifetime before of really going, oh, I've got to express myself. I've got to create. I've got to do. I've got to manifest out there in the world. And Uranus and Leo, many generation, see me, love me, know me. If we can really individualize, it also then will, Uranus and Leo, many generation, bring across highly creative forms of the various ways we can manifest in the world. Uranus rules technology. So you can see this pressure that we might notice here. And yes, Sun is new phase, that Neptune, so there can be some intuition that can start to come in here as well. But he is known as someone who is a workaholic and really driven to create. I wonder, being a second house Pluto, this is the Taurus soul. Okay, so yes, we'll have resources and manifestations. But after the birth comes survival. I wonder if maybe he hasn't had a lifetime or two, and we'll look at the South Node ego of the past, Gemini 11th. I wonder if he hasn't had a lifetime or two in the past where he didn't survive out of childhood. And was it disease? And for this creative soul, and where would I put him? You know, I think he's more third consensus. I don't know that I would put him at third individuated. Oh, it's possible. This is something we could debate, discuss. You know, he's got all that Uranian spark of creativity in individualization. But I still kind of put him in the consensus world with he is an advocate of GMOs, genetic modified organisms. He owns the patents on almost the majority of seeds in the world. I still put him in that consensus. So maybe this whole spark of creativity and I've got to do it, I've got to do it, I've got to do it, it might catapult him into individualized states of consciousness. I would think that in the process of doing that, it might go topsy-turvy with the wealth. Stay tuned. He can be a person in the news here over the next couple of years, and there may be a lot of civil rights backlash to what he wants to do in regards to worldwide vaccinations. There's an interesting, but the whole point is, this example here is that creative drive to really manifest. And for him, it's been through technology and computers. And Scorpio, shared resources, has brought him a wealth of resources. And a wealth of power. If Bill Gates says jump, the World Health Organization says how high. Now, I'm not denigrating WHO, but until the United States or until Donald Trump said we're not giving money anymore, Bill Gates was the second highest donator to Who. Now he's probably the biggest donator to Who. So that buys him a little bit of influence. Oh, here's that expression of self and those resources that will give me power. Okay, so we're not working with the morality of it here. We're working with the expression of a first quarter phase aspect. All right, moving on. Everybody getting the flow of this? You're going to have a beautiful resource for you. I hope. It's my intention. Um, I I am aware of past lives as an astrologer, and I'm aware of past lives as an astronomer. I'm not going to go into the details or public of it. And so the math was easy for me, and probably even the interpretation. But very, very early on in my astrological studies, I came across the cycle of phases and aspects and fell in love with it. Because once I started studying that, it took the confusion of interpretation out of the picture for me. By the way, if any of you are interested, a few years ago, I did a workshop called Mastering Chart Interpretation. I think it was like a 3-day weekend, and I don't know, 6, 8 charts. And we did complete thorough interpretations, and the chart, volunteer was there. So we had that live interactions. So if that's of interest to you and you need a more step by step, let's bring in whole chart, that would be a workshop that I would suggest for you to explain more, because we're so focused on this subject today. And so as we start moving through the first quarter phase, we come to the harmonics of 7 again, and we come to what we call the biseptile. And so remember, this is yang phase. I say yang, yin, sorry, not sorry. The septile 51 was yin phase. The biseptile is yang phase. And so remember that special destiny and appearance of fatedness, well, that new form and purpose of whatever that destiny is between those two planets, it's highly individualized, first quarter, and it's yang. So it is manifesting out there. And so those two planets are going to gel here to create a personal expression that is really unique to us. We have achieved moving beyond the pull from the past. And so now we are going forward. We can remember what we were wanting to gel there in the crescent phase septile, but now we're doing it. And the fatedness as we move into first quarter and yang is that when we put energy out there, energy is going to come back. And so we can start to draw in people who will show up, positive or negative, to help these two planets align in whatever ways it is that they need to move in really being able to express the new energy, the new form, the new purpose between the two of them. So I'm going to use another personal example here, and I'm paying attention to my names. This chart example is going to be Veronica. So if Veronica could unmute herself, and what we are going to look at with her chart is going to be the planetary pair of Chiron and Mars. And with Chiron and Mars, their angle is 101 degrees and 22 minutes. 101:22. And so what we are is we're, basically a degree and a half shy of this biseptile. However, we're starting to move into that aspect. And so, as you can see on your chart, we have another Aquarian soul, Pluto and Scorpio generation. Ew, 5 planets in Scorpio, huh? Parents were atheists. They were forced to leave the Czech Republic because of choices that dad made. He was absent a lot, very authoritarian, domineering, controlling, not close to him. Not much support from mom. You didn't say much about mom. You're welcome to put more in as we go along. Other than mom was kind of hurtful, and it had a strong effect on her. Blue collar younger sister. There was a little jealousy from the sister. This our volunteer there was a lot of pressure put on her to achieve in North America, to get that college degree, to really do something with her life and probably, pull the family out. She dropped out when she was getting her master's due to some strong anxiety attacks. And I think that second partner was kind of relative to that and greatly affected her. She said she lost confidence. It caused a lot of shame. She works, but she doesn't work to the degrees that she has credentials for. And she is now living by herself for the first time. 2 long-term relationships, older people, successful. She feels that she has difficulty in general with relationships. I mean, I look at this and I see that 11th house Pluto, the Aquarius soul, and the trauma from relationships with Scorpio. We're going to go in and focus on the planetary pair, though, of Mars and Chiron. Over the years, I've started to include Chiron as a planet. If they're going to demote Pluto, I'm going to bring in Chiron. So I hear you volunteer. Hi. And so when I look at Mars Chiron as a planetary pair, this is that instinctive desire to heal. Chiron, the wounded healer. And however we heal our wounds, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, then that experience is meant to turn into the Quranic gifts that we share with others. Hey, I was able to do it. Here's how I did it. And so, can you see how Mars Chiron as a planetary pair, in many ways, there's an instinctive drive to, I want to heal. And especially when you look at the trauma that this soul experienced in life that, was triggered by relationships, triggered by the familial pressure, triggered by things that were happening with the partner at that time. All right. The Chiron signature here in Gemini, it's retrograde, so we're throwing off. But in Gemini in 7th house, the woundedness could be around everybody else is smarter, everybody else knows what more. We can have all of us have the sadomasochism distortions of the patriarchy just by 2,000 years of the Piscean age, not to mention the ones that came before it. So we have those, conditioning factors, and she's part of many of us who have this generational, Chiron Uranus oppositions, which, generations of traumatized souls coming in, trying to objectify, break free, and heal the trauma. So here's Mars, and the South Node is in new phase conjunction to it. So the soul has spent most recent past lives trying to work through its desire nature and taking charge of it relative to family telling the soul what to do. There's a break free from that past patterning. But Mars to Chiron here at the waxing biseptile or first quarter biseptile. This is a lifetime for this soul to really realign her desire nature and taking charge of it, regardless of the circumstances that have created all this wounding through relationships. So these people, family, partner, who, have been co-creating the trauma with you, that fatedness, they were almost meant to show up to help you wake up. Does that make sense, volunteer?
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yes, yes.
I
And
almost feel like, there's nobody in my life who doesn't like come in by design.
some of that's going to be 5 planets in Scorpio. Welcome to welcome to the club. um and it's also going to be 3 of those planets in the 11th house. The concept of alienation works with Sag ninth, and it works with the Aquarius 11th as well. And alienation with the Aquarius or 11th house, the whole purpose is to individualize, to break free from consensus. And you're an Aquarian soul with Pluto and Scorpio generation. And so you've had lifetimes of, codependencies with others.
Mhm.
And the universe isn't allowing it to work this lifetime.
Mhm.
And that's why you can experience that intensity of alienation, that intensity of I don't feel I know how to connect to someone else, because you must connect with yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so this Mars aspect to Chiron is that, blessing in disguise, that biseptile of fatedness to really have you take charge, first quarter phase. Mars taking charge of your life, acting how you want and you perceive yourself to be in relationships that can help you heal
Mhm.
all of this relationship wounding that has existed for lifetimes. Make sense?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Comments or questions, honey?
Um, I think you know what it's interesting. Like in my romantic relationships, like there were times where basically it was like through the partner, like I could, I through that relationship, it was like an offer of a worry-free life, kind of like, oh well, I can take care of everything, and you can just play or do whatever you want with your life. But I, started realizing that I can't really have a functional relationship until, I step in and I claim my own individuality and until I am responsible for myself, in all the ways, even economically, and until I learn to love myself, I can really have a relationship that will make me happy.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And so Mars, the leading edge of our desire nature, that instinctive action upon our desires. But Mars in the opposite sign of its rulership, Libra, that makes that Martian energy consider other people's actions, sometimes to extreme, but it gives Mars that
Yes.
ability to listen and think before it acts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it then is allowing you, relative to, this planetary pair, it's going, oh, do I really want to act like everybody else? I don't necessarily feel good when I do. Do I want to act with what I perceive I need to do for me, that take charge? Okay, that be different even with Libra. Oh, if I do that, I feel better.
Definitely. Yeah, I think, with that Mars and Libra, like that was a really painful process of, because of like how it's so automatic for me to take in other people's opinions.
Mm-hmm.
It was really hard, especially in my last relationship, just to realize that I have to be paying more attention to my own truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So here's something to remember again. With a planet and the nodes, we start with the planet, reversing through the signs houses. The south node is a new phase conjunction to Mars. So you're breaking free, new phase, from the past, south node. By the way, your heads up for you. Later tomorrow, you're going to be the example for a planet square the nodes, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that in your email. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much. And so, as we move past, here we go again. As we move past that first quarter biseptile and that realigning that we get to do, we move forward then until we reach the trine. This is the harmonics of 3. This is the waxing trine or first quarter trine. This is where everything we've been trying to do in the first quarter to manifest the new form or intent between any two planets, this is where it comes into the fullness of its creative expression. This is where it comes into the fullness of self. And so we're aware of ourself, how we want to express these two planets together. We've made all this prior effort. And if we've been doing that due diligence with effort, this can really move into harmonious time and harmonious expression. It is the apex of fullness of self. If we have not been making that due diligence, if we've not been making that effort, if we've been the couch potato, those two planets are going to be in a trine aspect until we get tired of being on the couch and we decide to make that effort. And so at this trine, there is an ability to have the consciousness to reflect back over the last 120 degrees. In other words, whatever those two planets are expressing, we can go all the way back to that slower moving planet and get that original purpose. And we have an ability to reflect and understand at everything that those two planets have been evolving through together. And because of that, then, the manifestation and the reality of those two planets, we understand it. We know what to do. We know how to integrate it. We know how to express it out there into the world, into our society, or with another person one-on-one, if it's Venus and Mars, and how to relate in intimate relationships. The smoothness and rhythm is there. What it does require, though, is it requires us to still make effort. Because again, that trine energy can be so harmonious, so easy. Okay, I think I'll just stay here for 3 lifetimes. I don't want to, I don't want to make the effort. I just want my rewards. And so again, sooner or later, the soul gets bored. And it says, all right, I have to continue to evolve. I have to continue to evolve and grow. I must continue to express myself out there into the world relative to those planets. Now, if it's Jupiter in a waxing trine to Saturn, those are the two social planets, but they are not limited to just how well we socially interact in the world. It's how we grow and integrate Jupiter into society and authority, Saturn. Now, there are two planets that really work with the whole archetype of creating a career, or, expressively creating ourselves, our standing in society. And they can have it rather easy when they're in a waxing trine together. And yet they still have to continue to evolve and make the effort. Sooner or later, if Jupiter waxing trine Saturn is stagnating, people won't see us. The career will start to stagnate because we're not putting any energy into it. The creativity will stagnate because it doesn't have a purpose in society in some way. So just like we want to make the harmonics of 8, squares, oppositions, and semi-squares, sesquisquadrates, just like we always want to make them, hard, tension. It's just gelling energy. In the same respect, I am always telling people, don't think that, trines are a piece of cake. I have watched people go through a forecasting planet, make a trine to a natal planet, and everything falls apart because they weren't making an effort. So, again, no absolutes in the universe. So I did get it. Thought I was moving on. Okay, volunteer is Susan here. And we, at this point, hello, are going to look at Neptune Mercury as our planetary pair. And if we start with Neptune here at late Libra in the 5th house, we will go 113 degrees, 37 minutes to get to Mercury up here at about 22 Aquarius in the 10th and just past our midheaven. This volunteer, I loved what she wrote. 1950s dysfunctional family. I think we can all subscribe with you. Not close to her dad. His side was always fighting, and it pushed mom's family into the background. She has a younger brother who was diagnosed as a schizophrenic at 16. She's had a long career in telecommunications. She loved her work because it always allowed her to do a lot of traveling. She's retired. She had a first marriage of 7 years. He was an alcoholic. She divorced him. A 14-year partner. I don't know if you were married, but you said you were widowed in 2009. And so now your life is full of a lot of volunteerism, and you are learning a lot of different healing modalities. And Susan, are you the one who's doing the numerology presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm looking today. Okay, all right. So you won't be a volunteer until tomorrow. So you're not at the tail end, okay? You're not.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's later today, this
Okay.
afternoon.
Sure. Okay. All right. I did hear you say that, and so
Yeah.
when we look at Mercury Neptune as a planetary pair, it is Um, uh, 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 um, it's a unique, they're all unique planetary pairs. Mercury, Uranus, conscious mind, unconscious mind. You just automatically start to think mental, mental, mental. When we bring in Mercury, Neptune, this is the soul trying to process to the depths of the unconsciousness. In evolutionary astrology, the archetype of Neptune is the collective conscious unconsciousness. It is the closest symbol we have to source, God, Goddess, Great Spirit, whatever your terminology is. And so Mercury Neptune is um, interesting in that we're trying to go deep and then be able to express it, know it, manifest it. Um, any of you who have studied astrology, um, it's easy for us to go through a time period where we go, what the bejeebies is Neptune? You know, it gets confusing. Well, one of the ways that I will explain Neptune is Neptune rules Pisces in the 12th house. And the 12th archetype contains all 11 other archetypes that came before it. We are holding the circle as broadly as we can. Compare that to Mars, Aries, first house, me, myself, and I, the baby of the zodiac. Well, now we have the collective of the zodiac in the broadest possible forms. And Neptune doesn't even have form. And so Neptune, Pisces in the 12th house are almost the real actors of the zodiac. There is a well-known understanding that a lot of your Hollywood actors have active Neptune, Pisces, or 12th house in their chart, because which one of the other archetypes are they going to tap into and try on like clothing and just become? Another thing about Neptune is that it typically operates through cycles of confusion and clarity. And the confusion part of the cycle is to dissolve whatever is no longer in our highest and best good. Another way of saying it is that biblical phrase, but I'm saying it from a more metaphysical perspective. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Source will accept no substitutes. Wherever Neptune is in your chart, that's where you're trying to have that direct personal intimate with source energy. And so that confusion cycle is to dissolve the past. It is to dissolve fantasy, wishful thinking. It is to dissolve the desires, been there, done that. And we're left deliberately in a void so that we have no choice except on deep instinctive levels to connect into source energy. All right, I happened to see that. Okay, yep, got it. Okay, good, Nancy. Hey, I'm watching those little things pop up. I'm seeing them. And so that Neptunian void is, and these are two of my mantras for Neptune's transit through Pisces. What would you have me know, source? What would you have me do, source? And then with Neptune, when we move over into that clarity cycle, it seems to happen by magic. It's not something that we can Mercury left brain control. And the clarity cycle, then life has meaning, we are connecting, we are expressing, life is moving forward again. We have, in whatever ways, found, on the consensus level with Neptune, we've found value and meaning. Individuating and spirituating with Neptune, you're back, Source. I don't know where you were, but I'm really glad you're back. Ha ha ha, it's us who were leaving. And so that Mercury Neptune planetary pair is trying to take a lot of what I just described and make sense of that for ourselves. And if we look at this chart right here, okay, as we are watching them be 113 degrees and moving to approach the first quarter trine with each other, it means that this soul is really coming into a fruition, trines are fruition, that harmony of her left brain being able to understand, being able to process deep, deep, intuitive spiritual principles and express them. Mercury, Aquarius, being able to express them to others. And she can even be moving into a situation where, relative to the original 0 point, okay, the rebirthing, the initiation, Neptune is in the 5th house of creativity. And she wants, creativity that has value, that has meaning. And this late Libra, Neptune in the latter degrees of Libra, that's a generation in which they're really starting to come to terms with how they have projected ideals onto the partner. The Neptune in Libra generation makes the partner a de facto god or de facto goddess that then falls off that pedestal. And so they have to shift from idealizing the partner to going, oh gosh, I really have to have that relationship with Source unique to myself, Aries polarity, don't I? And at late Libra, she can be recognizing this. And so here's Mercury working to express it and working to express it out there in the world. I remember you saying that you were going to give, in your environmental conditionings, I remember you saying that you're going to do a numerology talk, but I did not know you were doing it today. So
So coincidental.
yeah. So there it is. And so I guess my point to you would be, you've got an ability here, and especially as you move through the wise years of your life, really working to speak, to write, to express yourself through all those healing modalities. And I would venture to say that you have the intuitive ability here to make it consensus when you're volunteering in the consensus world, and to make it alternative when you're in the alternative world. And just an intuitive moving back and forth with that. And, the words somehow just expressing themselves. Make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yep. We have one more aspect to go through, and it looks like I even have an example here. So what I'm going to do, recognizing the time here, I am going to have us pause for another 10-minute break. Okay. 10 minutes exactly. and then we'll meet back up. I don't have my cell phone deliberately, so everybody look and see what 10 minutes is, and I'll see you back here at that point.
Hi, Kim. It's Eileen.
Yes.
I will ask you right now because you need your
Yeah.
break, but I've
Yeah.
got a question to ask
Sure.
when we're done all this. Thank you.
Okay, sure.